And you've got to stay around because we don't have to turn this off. Okay, thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Those who join us now and those who join us later. Look, we've got three things we want to talk about today. I'll start with the article, um, which once again I tried to make short and once again failed miserably. It's about 4,500 words. But the reason it got that long was I was trying to create something. I was trying to do something we haven't done before. We added some new things to both of it. Our last article was a series of artifacts that found around the carry-on glyphs, but never mentioned the carry-on glyphs because I didn't want to get involved in the distractions of people saying it's a load of crap, which it isn't, but I didn't want to get involved, so I left that alone. And that was part one. And part two is basically staying in Gosford again, the same area. We were looking at archaeology that validates the Seven Sisters stories and the fact that original old way people call their spirit sky heroes. And they speak about the fact that one elder, Jerry Bostock, would always finish his conversations by saying his grandfather told me the Pleiadians are our brothers and sisters. Well, I wanted to find archaeology and academic commentary that justified that, and I believe we did. In fact, I'm going to make a claim now that I believe that the article that's just been put up, and there's a link to it, is the best article written on archaeology in Australia that validates the arrival and involvement, both culturally and genetically, of original people. Of Pleiadian people in original um, everything. Whether it's the dreaming, whether it's the genetics, whether it's things left behind, whether it's artifacts, all of those things are part of that. And we believe we proved that. So I am recommending to people that you have a look at that article. You may not normally read our stuff, you may just listen to what we've got to say, but have a look at it because I think it's a very convincing overview. And what we've managed to do once again is we barely mentioned carry-on glyphs and the fact that there's an alien presence in that. We wanted to keep away from it. We didn't want this argument sullied by false statements about another place because these places don't have a statement. Some of the articles, some of the places we put up we haven't shown before. Quite a few we have, but not in this order, not as in a coherent sort of argument about why this exists. And I want to add to that by saying if you don't feel like you want to read it, and that's okay because I don't read much myself, so I'm not criticising that. Our next online conference, that will be the base of what we're going to talk about. We're going to do that in more detail there. So if you don't want to read it, you can see it presented. Mind you've got to pay a little bit of money for that, unless you're a subscriber, then you only pay half as much, but that's a different story, and I'll let Evan do that later. So I am going to recommend that, but there's one thing I can tell you that even if you read the article, there's one thing you won't see. We just did the interview with Donnie, and Donnie wanted myself to sort of discuss things with him. He wasn't comfortable talking for 75 minutes about old way stuff. One of the things he really wanted to talk about, when we spoke earlier, made it clear he really wanted to talk about Yowies. And he did, in a lot of detail. And it gives a lot more information about Yowies. But what's fascinating, he also gave us some photographs to put up. And Leah's putting them into the article now. And one is an unbelievable photograph taken in 1939, I think, which is interesting, at the same time as Slater was working on the Standing Stone site. And it's of a little person, a little hairy person. And it's a photograph taken by the photographer, a white fellow who did not see the little fellow there. And there are three children, the little hairy fellow standing behind them, and you can see it, and it's amazing. And a woman, original woman, taken in 1939. Now, what's interesting about that, you may say, if you're cynical, that, well, hang on for a sec, if he photographed it, he should have seen it. Maybe he photoshopped it. 1939 photoshopping wasn't that flash. But secondly, I want to make the point, and most people may have heard this if you haven't, when we took Harry's to carry on, the place we didn't write about in the article, we took his wife and his son came. His son's Billy. And I've been there 40 times before, and lo and behold, as we're standing further down after we gave Harry's and his family ceremony, his son saw exactly what you're going to see in that photograph. And what was interesting, I spoke about the little people before, and I showed him a picture of the ones in Corunda that look exactly like us, but 3 foot tall. And they're not. They don't have the sort of dwarf legs that some people have, and I don't make a comment about the fact they're dwarf legs because we're dwarfs here to begin with, and that's why they're still around. They look exactly like us, but this thing, this hairy person, has just got hair everywhere. And Billy described to his father, Harry's, he said, look, Daddy, over there, there's a little person. He's a Yowie. He's a tiny little Yowie, and he's got hair all over his body. When we spoke about the little people, I showed them pictures of the ones that look like us. I never mentioned the little hairy fellas at all. So it's no one can say, oh, you put that into his head, because he didn't know about it. And Harry's has put up a video from Bondi Rescue. He's put up a video where he talks about the fact that his son saw it and he believes it. But what's interesting is, and what I'm getting up to, is he didn't see it either. But the little people, and you'll find out Donnie's going to say the same thing. They love playing with children, but they don't like adults. And I've been there 40 times. I've never seen them, but I'm an adult. Billy's been there once, and he's a child, and he did see him. So, ladies and gentlemen, Donnie's going to talk a lot about that, and he's got some amazing photographs that of themselves are the admission of worth the admission of entry. So please come along. We've also got Evan. What's her name? Ganyara. My apologies for that. She's going to show us some amazing. Remember, we're doing hoppy stuff this time round. Donnie's going to do old way teachings. That's what he's going to do. Ganyara is going to do, from a female perspective, some of that, but mainly a second part of what the hoppy said about the miracles you would see in the sky. And she's got one that's amazing, absolutely stunning. But what's really interesting about this is that she put just the film up, which she's going to show you, and millions looked at it. But they would have said, well, what's that? And they wouldn't have known. Because the interesting part of the story is not so much what's in the sky, which is not natural. I don't know what it is, but it's not natural, and that's what they said it'd be. But what's really interesting is you get the context, because she explains to you the setting that went around there and the reaction it had on the animals, and the reaction she had, and another original person who saw it. And no one else did, by the way. It was region specific. And when you get the context, you get a better idea of the story. If you just see it, you say, what is it? After you hear what she's got to say, you say, yes, I know what it is. So I do recommend that one. It's going to be a very interesting one and it's all original. And the third reason I want to talk about that online conference is because we've got an edition which is not advertised. It's a group of Ramangeri elders, and they want to talk about the culture centre that I've spoken many times and their solution to the problems we face. And I've mentioned before, and I'll mention very quickly, that twice we nearly had this up and the government stepped in and stopped it. And I believe it's deliberate. But this time around they've got a solution to that problem. And they put this together separately and then let me know, and I'm part of the committee to begin with, because it's all computer talk. I really didn't know what they were doing. It's taken me about 4 or 5 meetings to work out exactly what's going on. And because I have no skills in computer, and it's been done through the computer, and it was done by them, I said, look, this time round, you guys talk about it. Yeah, I'll ask a couple of questions to get it started, then it's over to them. So we're going to do that also. So I strongly recommend you actually have a look at this particular online conference, because it's all original. And they're going to be talking about a culture centre devoted to the rocks and also to Kana. So yeah, it's going to be quite a mixed sort of bag, but just to give you a little taster, what I'm doing in that article and what we'll be talking about is, first of all, academic reports in the 1930s around Gosford of an alien presence, and a site that talks about that, and we go into that in a lot of detail. And then we look at different artefacts, and one of the artefacts that comes to mind is one that was found, and you'll see pictures of it, we'll talk about it briefly, at Carrion, 5 metres from the glyphs, by Arnie Minnie Mace, another original person, who found a clump of dirt and felt compelled and told to pick it up and take it home, which she did. And after half an hour she cleaned it and there was a metal object inside. And what I am going to say, not much now, but I'm going to tell you one thing about that metal object. It's been to the best laboratory in this country, Graham Lancaster. It's the Southern Cross University Environmental and Research Laboratory, Analysis Laboratory. 38 people there, and the head scientist was the one who looked at this. 24% of it doesn't know what it is. It's not from here. That's the one thing he's told me for sure. 24% of this thing that's aluminium that you can't even drill into with anything that you'd use for aluminium. You had to use a tungsten tip just to cut a bit of metal to analyse it. It's not from here. So we're going to be looking at all sorts of things. We're going to look at academics, and you can say, oh, they could be making up. We're going to talk about dreaming stories. Carno's going to tell a dreaming story about one of the rocks, Ross's Rock 1, and the fact that it represents the Pleiadians coming here the first time, but people might say, yeah, I don't believe that. But then we're going to talk about metal objects, rings found in Australia, 4 metres beneath the surface, 1.5 metres beneath the surface. What are they doing here? There's not supposed to be metal here. And then we're going to talk about bones and skulls that don't belong to the Homo sapien race, nor do they belong to the hominid race. And all of this is found in Australia. So it's like a compendium. It's an overview of stuff we've spoken about before, and some new stuff. I'm going to show you a picture of 4 aliens that look so much like spacemen. They're lined up in a row and they go across the whole of this engraved site on a rock platform. Haven't shown you that one before, so it's a mixture of stuff. And then thirdly, but by no means last, I wanted to talk about our workshops and all. There's links to all these things here. And in our workshop, I can tell you that first one's booked out. The second one, which is on not next month, but the month after, or maybe I think it swaps over between that month and a bit of the one that follows. That one is over half booked out again, and I would strongly recommend, and that one's longer. It's half an hour longer. It goes for 4 hours as opposed to 3.5. And there was a small problem with the hours we wrote in there that's been fixed up. And it will have one of the original spokesperson from the Ramangeri for half an hour just explaining in more detail, just one of them talking in more detail about Carno and what they're trying to do. And we're trying to let people know about that, but because this is coming from the Ramangeri, we get enough criticism for the things we're doing. I just want to make clear this one is about what an original group are doing, about saving their culture, saving their heritage based around Carno, and I've got no issue with that because he's the strongest and most powerful original person I've ever met. Ever. Well, I don't know this life anyway. I don't know about the ones before, but I tell you what, if there was someone stronger than him before, they would have been amazing. Because Carno is, and all these people have all seen the same things often that we've seen, is the thing that humans call miracles. I don't anymore because I've seen Carno do so many of them. I realise they're not miracles. They're just what we can do that we've forgotten. I really argue that point. So ladies and gentlemen, I recommend you join us. We've got a great online conference coming up on Sunday. We've got a workshop, a month and a half from now roughly, the next workshop that's available. The first one's fully booked out, and I'm going to guarantee you one thing. When you spend your time with those rocks, it will change you. It'll make you a better person, and it will give you things that you don't expect to get, and I have no idea what they're going to be because I've never asked a person what happens there. But we do make a money-back guarantee for this. If it turns out on the first time round, in our 3.5 hour presentation, if that 10 minutes doesn't work and you come up and say, I got nothing from it, we'll give you 1/3 of the admission price back straight away. No questions asked. That's how comfortable I am because I've seen this happen so many times and I know what these rocks can do and I know they want to do this. And we are offering this workshop. And I'll make the point again, we're only offering this workshop in conjunction with, and you'll find on the website they've put up, the Ramangeri have put up, they even mentioned the fact on their front page that for the time being, If you want to spend time with the rocks, they're telling you to do the same thing. Come to Byron Bay. Well, it's just out of Byron Bay, but it's close to it anyway. We're up in the mountains behind it. They've said the same thing. They're fully behind this too. This is what we, not just us, but what we are doing to get some of Kano's legacy out there, because all of the stuff that's been put on display goes to that culture centre. That was always the deal. So, ladies and gentlemen, I do suggest you come along and join us. And Evan, do I need to do a promo on that? I sort of have, haven't I?
Yeah, you've done pretty good considering.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Considering, I like that. Adequate was my effort in selling that. Oh, and the last thing I would suggest is, if you do become a subscriber, you do realise that you get each of the online conferences for 40% off. And if you come to our workshop, you get 20% off that. And there's other things we're doing, and you get the same percentage, 20% off everything except the online conferences, where you get 40% off. It really is a very, very good deal from a financial point of view if you want to keep watching what we've got to say and what we're doing and what we're finding out. So I do encourage you to join us in any way you wish possible. If you're not sure to begin with, just come along to one of our online conferences and realise that if you become a subscriber, you get complete access to the other 19 that came before it. And that works out to be 19 times 6. That's nearly 120 hours. And that's a pretty good deal. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. And now Evan's going to come and try and turn this off because I don't know how to do it. Evan, I'm finished. Now, there is a way of doing this, isn't there? One, you do that.